Hello everybody, I'm Steve from FuseMachines. So we kind of use the Dotscience platform for around a month and a half, and we did two projects. One being the data science bowl, and the other being the Freesound General-Purpose Audio Tagging. So these were both Kaggle challenges that we did, and we want to share our experience on how the Dotscience platform differs from the traditional way that we do things. So before going into the Dotscience platform itself, what we usually do normally in our workflow is that we need some data pipeline and some infrastructures to run the deep learning models, ML models, AI models, anything. So we can use the cloud services for the infrastructure, the GCP, AWS, and we usually spin up the EC2 instances, set manually go inside the servers, set up the environment as required, and we set up everything before going into the actual coding. So the setup process itself takes us around half a day to a single day if everything goes all right. If something is not there, then it can take a lot longer. But once I use Dotscience, uh, you can see this is the dashboard for the Dotscience. So this is the that Dotscience dashboard. So we had runners inside the Dotscience platform. It's there, and it was already set up. So what I mentioned was that when we set up the infrastructures ourselves, it takes around half a day to a single day. But the runners that we were provided with were set up with the required packages and things. We only needed to add only little few more things that is easy as a single line command. So the time to get the project running, the actual experimentation part was 5 minutes. So that's a huge bump to directly go to the coding part itself. And yeah, the runner is the pre-built runner is something that's a lot useful. So even if we do not have a pre-built runner or provided runner, we can uh, actually create a local runner or any other runner using this, and we can specify the details and run this command in our server, and we get the option to run uh, the runner, attach the runner to the Dotscience platform. So it's easy as a single line of command, and yeah, we can actually have the runner set up fairly easily. Moving on, we go back to the project page itself, and we'll be talking about the data ball project. So it's basically a Kaggle competition where uh, we take in, we need to find, detect the nuclei for the cells so that we can help in the medical imaging itself. So yeah, and the main part of this is getting the data and the experiment. So let me go into the data board, the Jupyter lab like setup in the Dotscience platform. So while it is loading, the data that we obtained was from Kaggle itself. So uh, yeah, the Dotscience platform is open. So the terminal, the if you are familiar with Dotscience, we can actually work with the Dotscience lab because it's built on top of the Jupyter lab, and everything is the same. Only some minor changes that we need not take care of. The Dotscience platform has taken care of that, so we can have everything, and we get the integrated terminal as well. So using the Kaggle CLI, we can actually uh, have the data downloaded from the Kaggle competition. So there are other ways to actually have the data itself as we do in the normal servers, but yeah, it's fairly easy to get the data itself. Um, moving on, uh, I said that the Jupyter Live is the same, so it's nothing to learn more. But the first reaction when I started using Dotscience was there's a different library called Dotscience, and I must learn it. It might be a lot of changes in the code. But to my surprise, I found out that uh, there were we didn't need to change anything more in the Dotscience using the Dotscience library itself. So we import the Dotscience library as a simple import, and there are two modes: the script mode and the interactive. We kind of usually use the interactive mode with the Jupyter notebooks and the script with the scripts. And unlike some libraries where we need to change a lot of chunk of the codes, we can actually have DS hooks. By DS hooks, I mean the commands such as DS outputs, the DS inputs, and as you can see here, the DS outputs. Uh, Also, I have some DS parameters. Yes, the DS publish, the DS labels. Oh, I haven't used that, but yeah, you get the idea. There are commands such as ds.publish, ds.inputs, ds.outputs. So as you can see in this line, um, we only add the command, the paths in the ds outputs, and we actually get, if we pass in the string, we get the strings output itself. So it internally does something like just like a decorator. So it's minimal changes in the code. So that's very nice, because we need not change the code according to the Dotscience platform a lot. So that's welcome. So these hooks are helpful when I talk about the run features in the later part of the video. So yeah, the code base should not be changed a lot for that. So moving back to the project, the project folder. Uh, yeah, there are different tabs in the dashboard itself: the run, the explore, the pull request, and the settings. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that these are in the settings. You can actually have the runners itself and attach and detach the runners from the settings side, and also you can collaborate with anyone you want. So suppose let me remove this person from the collaboration part. It's easy to remove anyone, revoke access to anyone if we don't want to share the project with them, and if we want someone to have the access to the project, we can actually share the project by adding their usernames. So the thing about this collaboration is that you actually share the data, the current version of the data, the current version of the code, and any other outputs that you have, the logs and everything, with just the step that I just did. So setting up the project for anyone else is also as fast as setting up for yourself. So that's a welcome feature in the collaboration part. And yeah, that's the nice to have a fast time to experiment. And moving to the runs folder, uh, as I mentioned earlier, there are hooks such as DS outputs, inputs, publish, and everything. So it kinds of aligns with Git workflow. So whenever we commit something, we publish the thing. So it's similar in the Dotscience platform. Whenever we publish something, the runs are tracked. The publish are tracked as runs, and the runs are, as you can see, I have some runs, and I can actually view the details of the run. So whenever I click a run, I get the files that had been changed, the folders, and even I can get the details of the folder. So as you can see, there is a provenance graph. This provenance graph is something that is is a lot useful and quite helpful, because in our regular workflow now here in FuseMachines, we actually do not have any method to create this provenance graph. So what the provenance graph allows us to do is that, as you can see here, let me zoom in a little bit more. There is a uh, input for the main script, the data slash data dot train, and the outputs. These are checkpoints for the model. So from a visual graph, we can see that the data that we want. So these are already tracked versions of the data. So everything is tracked here. You can see the add some ID. So yeah, it's there, and so this allows me to know that which data set at what time I use the data, what version of the data set I used, what version of the code I had written, and what I got from the combination of those. So this is fairly a simple graph, but if I had a source of different various data pre-processing pipelines and different data sources, it'll be easier for me to know I which data I used, which code I used, which experiment I ran. So along with the provenance, so the provenance graph is something that the Dotscience does quite good. So yeah, it's a very welcome feature. Apart from that, we usually have the values in track the how we track the model is we either have a CSV file or a JSON dump or something a pickle file for the runs that we do, and we actually show the pickle files, and whenever we want to go back through what experiment we had done, we need to relate everything with each other and script through the data itself. So in the Dotscience platform, whenever we click on the run details, it's everything there. So the DS parameter, the hooks I talked about, the DS parameters, the DS summaries, labels, they actually reflect the things in for the training, the experiment that I had done and the setup that I did. So this is yeah, this is the some of the hyperparameters that I tracked. So I wanted to know which transformations for the pre-processing I had done. The since my architecture is kind of adaptable to different number of parameters, it's the factor I wanted to know. The architecture receptive field and so on. So you get the idea. We have a lot of parameters and we actually get a lot of that as well. Uh, it's kind of similar when I do some other project itself. So if I go into another project, I do have runs that uh, that have a lot of parameters. So it has the provenance graph, it has the parameters, it has different summaries. So yeah, it's nice to have separated out parameters or separated out runs, and that's a welcome feature. Beside this, this is for a single run, and when we go over to the Explore tab, we get the summary of different runs at a single page, and we even get the visual graph of what we did in the project. So as you can see here, I had this is a loss versus run graph. So I had a loss of 0.04 validation loss a week ago, but I might have tweaked something else, and the loss seems to going higher and gradually decreasing. But I know from the graph that I had a better model a week ago than an hour ago, as you can see here. So yeah, this is just by a visual representation, not going through the JSON file, the document that I had created, or anything else. So I can actually know, oh, I can if there is something I can actually retrace my work to the week before and continue with a different approach from there. So that's something that this graph helps. Similarly, is for the train loss, the graph had been updated. So yeah, I actually had the train loss lower weeks before rather than the experiments 2 hours last hour before. So this is something very helpful. And if we want to get the details of anything, we just click the runs. We get to the detail page, and yeah, back to the graph itself. So yeah, the as you can see, the provenance graph has changed. So I had from the last provenance graph to this, I can verify that I have added a different source of data, and that might have changed the loss of the model itself. And yeah, that I can easily visualize everything. I can easily recall my experiments. So that's for the runs and explores. um, Even the metrics that we track, yeah, it's the metrics that we track here, it's easily fairly visible, and we can even get the details if we click on those points as well. So we can view the metrics, the provenance graph, the overview of everything. So this is something that takes up a lot of time during the experimentation versus documentation. So this is easy and into kind of like, why didn't we have this feature before? So yeah. Moving on to the pull request, it's for the collaboration part. I mentioned earlier that we can share the projects easily, but we want to reflect back what the changes we want, so we can add the pull request, and it's a version control system for the notebooks. And yeah, I mean the notebooks itself. So Dotscience allows us to actually visualize the difference in the cells of the notebooks. It's something that we haven't got. And let me go through this picture. And if you guys can see this, sorry about that. Um, so yeah, this is a general picture of. Let me present this. Yeah. So yeah, actually, this is a difference for the notebook cell. So having the feature to have the collaboration in the cell itself, it's very handy, and it's something that even GitHub or GitLab do not do it properly. So we usually tend to run the experiments from the notebook itself, and this is something I personally like from the Dotscience platform. Moving along, so yeah, talked about the provenance graph, the details and everything, the metrics, and I talked about everything. So one might wonder, it's all right, but what about during the training? So we actually have TensorBoard support in the project itself. Let me go back to the project. So as you can see, there are docs related with the TensorBoard in the Dotscience documentation itself. So we can actually attach the TensorBoard and tunnel it through the runners itself, and we can actually view the logs for the TensorBoard. So yeah, let me go through that. And when I go to the TensorBoard, it connects to the log. Oh yeah, and yeah, this is the TensorBoard. This probably is of another log that hasn't been completed, but you get the idea. We can connect the TensorBoard itself. Also, another thing is that we can, unlike the terminals that we need this command line or any third party to connect to the server that we set up. The Dotscience platform is web based, and we can access it through mobile devices itself. So yeah, it might be helpful for some. So the features there, only if we want, we can use it from the mobile platform itself. And last but not the least, we talking about terminals, we do have the option to use the Dotscience platform from the command line, the terminal itself. So I have been training this the architecture using the command line. So actually we have some command line called ds, and this allows us to run tasks or list tasks. There are different things we can do. So ds task, and then so this allows me to see what tasks have been running or what has been completed. So as you can see, there are steps like terminated, completed, failed. So we have the option to use ds command line to run the project itself. So even if I ds command ds run, so there is something like this. So this allows me to run the project in the Dotscience platform directly from my local machine without even having to log into the Dotscience platform. So yeah, this this is especially useful when I have everything set up and I only need to run some experiments with some changes in the parameters or some files which I can do locally and upload the files using the same command with some flags like minus minus view. So this allows me to not even go through the GUI rather than run the command line using the CLI itself. So uh, thinking about the Dotscience platform, um, just to summarize, we can go through this slide. Yeah. So here's our final verdict. So collaborative part, we can fairly easily share the projects, including the data version, the data, the script state, the notebook state, and any other things that we want. And we have the option to use Git along with the collaborative tools they provide, including the merge features for the notebooks, the model provenance and data versioning. So as I mentioned earlier, I get the provenance graph. I know which version of data is coming to the version of the script and what it produced. So that's nice. And talking about the metric tracking, on the right you can see here is there's a long list of numbers, while on the left it's the Dotscience platform that provides the values. And so this is something you when you go through a lot of numbers, you need to dig in what the experiments had been done, what numbers had been done. But from the Dotscience platform, it's just a click away to know the details of the experiments itself. So all in all, the Dotscience platform encourages us to dive rightly into the experimentation rather than taking thoughts of how to set up the infrastructure, the hassle of the infrastructure, and it provides us the tools to track the experiments efficiently. So I guess anyone who wants to just solve a problem can use Dotscience. Thank you.